I made a promise to myself that I would never do an in-depth video on the Star Wars movies for this channel. I just have no interest in dealing with the fans on either side of the conversation, and there's nothing anyone can ever say that won't piss off a million annoying people. But it's May the 4th, and I just watched the first 6 Star Wars movies yesterday, so I have a lot in my head that I want to talk about. When I was watching them, I put a lot of thought into the lightsaber duels and what makes them so cool, so I thought I'd break my one rule and make a video ranking them. Before I get into this, I'm going to clarify my criteria. If you only judge a lightsaber duel on how many flips there are and how many times they spin the sword, this video is not for you. This is what separates Star Wars from generic sci-fi action flicks like Rebel Moon. It's a space opera. The conflicts and dynamics between the characters are Shakespearean. So when a character fights, there's something called subtext. A good lightsaber duel is 60% personal conflict and 40% choreography, and even then I'm being generous. There are 2 duels in Romeo and Juliet, and there is a large amount of discourse surrounding the deeper meaning behind these duels. If I sent the average Star Wars fan back in time to watch the very first production of Romeo and Juliet, they would probably complain about the lack of flips and spins. This isn't John Wick. The action isn't about the action, it's about the personal stakes and the characters. So let's just get into it. First up is Luke versus Vader, the final battle of the best Star Wars movie. The stakes here are very high, and you'll learn a great deal about Vader in this scene. So far, all Luke knows of Vader is that he murdered his father and Obi-Wan, and he's technically responsible for the deaths of his aunt and uncle, and he has now imprisoned his friends. Vader is responsible for literally every act of suffering in Luke's life. Luke is fighting to free his friends, but he's also here for revenge. However, there is also the warning that Yoda gave him on Dagobah. The hate and anger he's feeling are the same emotions that created Vader, and giving into them will put Luke on the path to become him. But Luke is fighting on a lie, partially. He thinks that Vader is just some guy who betrays his father, but Vader is the only guy who has the whole picture in this scene. Vader is fighting to test Luke. On the one hand, he wants to see his son while under the veil of being a stranger. On the other hand, he wants to see how powerful Luke really is, because Vader wants to overthrow the Emperor with the help of Luke. Vader has no intention of killing Luke. Even cutting off his hand is just him trying to force Luke into submission. He's literally just an abusive father trying to beat his son into obedience. The fight is also shot and lit very well. The imagery is iconic. The duel itself is awesome. Easy, unquestionable S tier. Next we have Dooku versus Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, and I mean Obi-Wan is here too, but he gets tossed away almost immediately. Dooku has never exactly been the most beloved Star Wars villain, mostly because his name is Dooku, and he doesn't have a whole lot of history with Anakin, but this fight has a lot of themes: temptation, revenge, hate, and anger. This is one of the most important moments in Vader's character journey. Dooku is just a pawn here. He's kind of the opposite of Vader in the last fight. He thinks he has the whole picture, but he really doesn't. This is the first time we see the Emperor using his influence to turn Anakin to the dark side. In terms of choreography, this is one of the better prequel duels as well. It doesn't feel over choreographed like they tend to at times, and seeing it end with Dooku's realization is a great way to finish it all off. Overall, this is like A tier. Then we have Duel of the Fates, the mouth breather's favorite Star Wars duel. Growing up, I loved Phantom Menace, and this is obviously the best part of the movie. I've grown to hate this fight for the past several years. I think it's too over choreographed to look authentic, but this most recent time, I thought it was cool. Sometimes it feels a bit too much like a rehearsal, but I enjoyed it, so based off of aesthetics, like the choreography, this one's fine. Thematically, it's kind of complicated because the fight is called Duel of the Fates for a reason. The 2 fates of Anakin hang in the balance here. You know, whether or not he's going to turn to the dark side. There are videos talking about this, about how if Qui-Gon had not died in this fight, that Anakin likely would have never turned to the dark side. So there is that element here. So you might think that's enough to satisfy my criteria, but I disagree. Here's my secret method to gauge how well set up the players in any Star Wars duel are. Imagine if in the middle of the fight everyone were to just stop fighting and instead had a debate about why they were fighting and what their intentions are. Some of these fights even help you out by having the characters do this mid-fight. Vader talks to Luke a lot during the Bespin duel. I'm pretty sure the only line of dialogue in this fight is no. But if they were to all stop fighting, what would they even have to say? I'm fighting you because of the color of your lightsaber? Who are you? What do you want? Who knows? They have nothing to talk about because they don't know who the other person is. No one involved knows that they're battling over the fate of Anakin. So because this fight is pretty cool, the theme is awesome, and there's kind of some subtext, I'm putting this duel in the B tier where it belongs. Next is Qui-Gon versus Maul on Tatooine. I don't know. Not much to say about this one. This is just the duel of the fates, but without the dual lightsaber and no theme, the music, and no subtext of Anakin's destiny. They're fighting because Qui-Gon is just in Maul's way, which is fine, but this is just a short nothing fight. This is whatever. I'll put it C tier. I'll be nice. This is C tier. This is just fine. Now we're at the throne room fight in Return of the Jedi. I'm not even going to play around with this one. This is the definitive Star Wars duel. Literally, everything from all 6 movies culminates here. Vader and Luke's arcs come to a close after each getting a trilogy to establish them and their morality and their purpose. In this fight, Luke is literally battling to redeem his father's soul. Meanwhile, Vader's battling to corrupt Luke's. But he's also trying to save Luke's life, knowing that turning to the dark side is the only way the Emperor will spare him. This fight is very clearly the inspiration for the Dooku and Anakin fight. 2 guys battling while the Emperor watches from a throne, trying to tempt the Jedi to the dark side. Luke decides to spare Vader and holds to his ideals after removing Vader's hand. Anakin decides to execute Dooku and begin his dark side turn after removing Dooku's hands. But obviously the players are set up much, much better in this movie. S tier for the Star Wars duel. Obi-Wan versus Grievous. When I think of lifeless slop prequel battles, this is the one that comes to mind. This is a fight that really does nothing at all. Grievous is as poorly set up a character as Maul is. He's just a robot whose only purpose is to give Obi-Wan an action scene. But unlike Maul, Grievous isn't real. He's just CGI. So Ewan McGregor just has to wave his saber around and hope the post-production makes it look cool. The result is moments like this where Grievous waves his lightsabers a couple inches away from Obi-Wan's face, but he doesn't even flinch or react. They don't even make good use of the character design. Grievous, this big robot monster with multiple arms, loses 2 of his 4 arms a few seconds into the fight because I'm assuming it was too complicated to choreograph a fight scene against a guy with 4 arms, so there's nothing for Ewan to see. This is just a horrible fight that looks terrible and means nothing. F tier for you. Dooku versus Anakin and Obi-Wan. This time, he fights them one at a time. Once again, there are basically 0 personal stakes here. We really don't know who Dooku is, and they're just fighting because he's trying to escape. There's no subtext or deeper meaning to this battle. It's just the end of the movie, so somebody has to fight somebody. Obi-Wan knows of Dooku. Dooku knows of Obi-Wan. They've only met once before, very briefly. Anakin and Dooku don't even know of each other at all, so their relationship in this fight is completely non-existent. And now the Emperor's lightning, once a symbol of hate and malice, is now just something the bad guys can do when they're extra evil. Not good, but nothing offensive like the Grievous fight. We could lose this fight and no one would care. D tier. Emperor Palpatine is the best part of Revenge of the Sith. Ian McDiarmid is so great in the role, and he makes every scene he's in better. except for this one, because he insisted on doing the duel in this scene rather than a stunt double. I'm going to say something you may find controversial. The evil king, wizard, ruler is a common trope in the fantasy genre. There's usually a physical threat to the hero, another villain like Vader, while the evil king sits on his throne and uses his influence and power to challenge the hero. They're not a physical threat because that's not who they are or their function in the story. So I never had any interest or desire to see Palpatine whip out his own lightsaber and throw down with the Jedi. On top of that, Palpatine refers to lightsabers like they're stupid Jedi toys. Not sure why you would want him to have an epic fight unless you're a drooling fanboy. So this fight doesn't look good because half of the choreography is with a 60-plus-year-old man. Half the Jedi in this scene just die unceremoniously, doing literally nothing. And yeah, I don't know. This is whatever. It's just a fight. There's very little character motivation outside of you're evil. It looks bad, and its existence is just fanboy slop. D tier. Obi-Wan versus Vader is like a litmus test to tell if your friend is a drooling 6-year-old. This fight is often criticized for being slow and boring because it's an old man and a guy in a heavy suit. Like every battle in the original trilogy, this is a fight brimming with personal connections and motivation. I'm not really sure how you can enjoy any Star Wars character or the overall story of Star Wars and not appreciate this fight. The story of Vader and Anakin all culminates here and is completely satisfying from a narrative perspective. Obi-Wan confronts the monster he partially created. Vader finally gets to take his revenge. Obi-Wan sacrifices himself, both robbing Vader of the revenge he's craved for almost 2 decades and saving Luke, atoning for his failure and helping create Vader in the first place. The characters talk the whole fight because they know each other and there's stakes, and this battle is a significant moment in their lives. I was tempted to put this one in A because, the choreography is not amazing. It's good. There's one pointless flip, but I got to writing about this scene and it's too powerful to deny. Okay? S tier. Fuck you. And here we are. My least favorite fight and probably my least favorite moment in Star Wars history, or at least 1 through 6. Yoda versus Count Dooku, a scene that takes everything good and unique about Yoda, maybe the best character in Star Wars, my favorite character in Star Wars, and just buries it. It ruins not only the character, but my favorite scene in all of the Star Wars movies. I'll get the choreography out of the way. It's terrible. It's just 80-year-old Christopher Lee waving a sword around while animators make CGI Yoda do flips around him. Completely unappealing in that regard. But giving Yoda a little lightsaber because drooling fanboys need to see the bright lights, something he does because he is unable to beat Dooku in a battle of the Force, so he beats him in a saber fight, causing Dooku to have to distract him so he can escape, completely flying in the face of every lesson he taught to Luke. This awesome. F tier. Anakin versus Obi-Wan. This is probably the most beloved duel in the trilogy, a massive undertaking that defined this entire movie, and yes, it's the best duel in the prequels. For once, 2 characters are fighting who have a deep understanding of each other. They talk while they fight, they get emotional, their emotions impact the way they fight. Anakin at one point just grabs Obi-Wan and chokes him, and it's a raw, emotional moment for the characters. All around, a great duel. I think it goes on a bit too long and gets too extravagant, like in the middle, but the ending is great after Anakin is defeated, and it opens like super strong. The best part of the fight is the beginning when they're in the room. I like that there's no redemption or temptation element. Both of these guys are set in their ways and they're just trying to kill each other. Obi-Wan sees Anakin as a failure on his part because he is. Anakin doesn't see anything because he's been fully consumed by hatred. Well done. Excellent all around. I do think the fight is too over the top, so that makes me want to drop it down to A tier, but I'm in a really good mood, so I'm putting it in as S tier prequel fight. That's all. And now, the final duel on our list, Palpatine versus Yoda. A duel between two characters I never wanted to see pick up a lightsaber. But Yoda is like the leader of the good guys, and Palpatine is like the leader of the bad guys. So my brains say they need fight, or I know be satisfied. Whatever, but Palpatine gets flung into a chair, and we see under his robe, like his pants, and it just feels so weirdly humiliating. This one is an improvement over the Dooku fight because they at least use the Force throughout this entire fight. It's not like Yoda tries it and goes, oh, guess that didn't work, time to whip out the sabers. They just go at it with whatever they've got. But ultimately, I never see anyone praising this fight. It's just kind of there. Anything not included in the first 2 LEGO games isn't canon to me, so whatever, D tier. Alright, that was that. I have now betrayed all of my morals on this channel by talking about Star Wars. Let's see how this video does. Maybe it'll follow the recent trend and it'll be nothing and I won't get harassed by a bunch of morons. We'll see. Who knows? But video done. I'm just gonna pump this out real quick. Felt like doing it. I finished watching Star Wars at 2 a.m. last night. I watched the first 6 movies all day yesterday. So I'm tired, but I'm gonna edit this. I'm gonna put it out and alright. Goodbye. Subscribe to the channel.